So what's happening is the water's coming in at the back of these big screens.
It's much more efficient to have a few wastewater treatment plants rather than 18.
This tank will store some of that flow until we have conveyance and treatment capacity.
Hi and welcome to the Sustainable Region. I'm Kaljit Kayla and today I'm visiting Iona Beach Regional Park. You might not expect to find a wastewater treatment plant in a park, but this is also the site of the Iona Wastewater Treatment Plant, the second largest in the region. In this show, we're following the pipe and taking a closer look at how the region manages wastewater. We begin at the end of the line as we join some students who are on tour of the Anasis Island Wastewater Treatment Plant. It's the busiest and largest within the GVRD, serving more than 740,000 residents from Burnaby to Langley.
Basically, from this position, this is where the water leaves the plant, and where you drove in, where the cars are over there, is where it comes into the plant. So it basically comes in about 30 feet underground. This is the influent chamber here. So what's happening is the water's coming in at the back of these big screens, and as you can see, happening right now is the rake has now cleaned off the screen down below, and it'll lift this debris up. That'll now be taken upstairs to a compactor, and then we send that away to landfill. What you're looking at right now are the main influent pumps. And what happens is, basically as it flows in, goes through the screens, the rags are cleared, then the water then is pumped upstairs about 70 feet, 60 feet up onto the SED tanks. And what's happened is the water has been pumped up by the two pumps into this header, and then it spreads out and it flows through all the SED tanks. And there are 13 SED tanks here. And again, to minimize the odor, I know you're not convinced at this point, but we have all the tanks have covers on them. And what's happening is there is a negative pressure generated, and the foul air goes in these great big headers above you, and they're pumped out to the biofields. So you want to follow me? We'll show you how the water goes through one of the tanks here. So then what happens is it flows through some apertures in this header right here, and it flows into the SED tank area. And as you'll notice, the water is now very calm. It's not flowing anymore because we want settling action. Anything that's in the water that's still heavy, density greater than 1, will begin to settle. Question was asked, what happens with paints and solvents and things like that? I mean, they're lethal. They kill the bioorganisms. The toxic stuff can really be hard on us. Any greases in that, now grease floats, so basically what would happen is the greases would float to the top, and you can see this kind of tan colored stuff on there. That's the grease in that's come from basically foods and processed like that. And we take that off because we don't want to send that greasy stuff up to the trickling filters because they can't handle it, they just plug up. So we try to remove as much out of the water as we can from the settlables and also the stuff that floats to the surface. Here's the tank that is empty. Gives you an idea to see how deep this is and how much water actually flows through here. Basically, it takes about 5 hours for the water to flow from that end to this end. That's how slow we want it, again, having settling. So these are the launderers, these big pipes with the holes in them. So they're down a way so you get the cleanest of the water, if I can call it that. On the bottom, you can see the chains and the rakes with the Teflon strips. So as it comes off to the end here, it scrapes along the bottom, and any sludge that's settled is drawn back to the front of the tank. This is a sludge, all this black stuff on the bottom. That's what's settled out of the water. And then, as I mentioned, the scrapers pull that all the way back to the front. So you saw a cleaner tank there because we've been doing some refurbishing on that tank. The water now has left the primary SED tanks But as you can see, there's no rags left in there. Basically, it's just suspended solids. So it's a lot cleaner than when it came into the plant, believe me. And it's now flowing by gravity to the end of this channel. And we're going to go down there and have a look, and then we'll show you where the process goes from here.
We'll be continuing our tour of Annacis Island later in the show. Coming up after the break, the big wastewater picture.
It's so tempting. The kitchen sink is right there and it's only a little grease. But before you dump it down the drain, take a look at this. Now that's just nasty. Every year, the GVRD spends about $800,000 on labor and equipment just to keep our sewer system free of grease buildup. But there is an easy way you can deal with your leftover grease from cooking. Just pour it into an empty milk carton, and then that can go into the garbage. We need to think about what goes down the drain because it all ends up somewhere. And you don't want me to show you that video again.
Enter the Sustainable Region's Home Sustainability Challenge. Tell us what you are doing to make your home more sustainable, and you will be entered into a draw to win this home sustainability kit. The kit includes low-flow shower heads, a thermostat timer, energy saver light bulbs, and much more. Call us now at 604-436-6794 or email us at sustainableregion@gvrd.bc.ca to enter. Welcome back to the Sustainable Region, coming to you from Iona Beach in Richmond. Wastewater is what the pros call water after it's been used. This can be water left after washing the dishes, flushing the toilet, runoff from the streets, or as part of the industrial process. Combined, we produce almost 1 billion liters of wastewater a day in the region. In our next story, we take a look at the network of municipal pipes, trunk sewers, pumping stations, and wastewater treatment plants that make up Greater Vancouver's sewer system.
What the GVRD does is supply a service to the member municipalities of the Greater Vancouver Sewerage and Drainage District. The member municipalities collect the wastewater from industrial, residential, and commercial users, deliver it to us via a piping system where we pick it up and move it through our own piping system to our wastewater treatment plants.
GVRD is responsible for approximately 450 kilometers of wastewater sewers and 5 sewage treatment plants. 3 of those treatment plants are on the Fraser River and 2 discharge to the marine environment.
We have 4 major drainage areas within the region. We have 5 wastewater treatment plants, and each color flows into a particular wastewater treatment plant in the region. The blue ones are main municipal sewer mains, and the red on the screen is part of the GVRD network. I'll zoom into some locations, and we've got some aerial photo imagery. So you'll see sewer lines going down every street, and we get that data from the District of North Vancouver, for example, and then it flows into a major municipal trunk sewer. This house would connect essentially into the blue municipal line at about this location, and then it would flow following the arrow south, essentially. Follows this path, and you can see with the green arrows the flow direction, and continues down these streets, and then that will feed into the GVRD somewhere down the line. So the flow continues down this municipal line, major junction here, 2 municipal systems that come together, continues to flow south, and eventually hooks into the GVRD system at this point, and making its way to the wastewater treatment plant. And generally the GVRD system is intermunicipal, so it spans across multiple municipalities, in this case, right at the border of District of North Van and City of North Van. That's where essentially GVRD is taking over control over the system.
It's much more efficient from a taxpayer's point of view to have a few wastewater treatment plants rather than 18, because there's roughly 18 municipalities in the Lower Mainland. For the most part, it's a cost allocation formula, and the costs are allocated primarily based on flow. So we measure the amount of flow that's coming in from each member municipality, and they're billed accordingly. That's what we're doing right now. Just up the street here, we're putting in another pipe to parallel the one that's already there to handle more sewage or more wastewater that may be coming from the city, and also it gives us a little more reliable pipeline running up the street. The one that was built back in the 70s is showing some signs of wear and tear, and it's due for replacement fairly soon.
Sludge is what arrives at the front end of the treatment plant. The sludge is converted to biosolids, and it's done biologically. All the plants have the facilities. The byproduct of all the plant is the biosolids material. The majority of it has been used for mine reclamation, primarily in the interior. The water in the sewers is very warm. It's coming from our homes, our hot water tanks. We're using hot water, draining our bathtubs. The idea here is to get that heat out of the sewers primarily through some sort of piping. It works like your refrigerator in reverse. That's the only thing you need, is a temperature difference and a small temperature difference. And the heat pump works.
Well, we need something in place to make sure that the way the wastewater is handled and treated and costed in this sewerage area is more or less the same as what it might be in another sewerage area. So it's an attempt to give some equity across the region. Certainly Burrard Inlet and other water bodies that abut the Greater Vancouver area would be seriously affected if we didn't go through the steps that we do in collecting the wastewater, getting it to our treatment plants and treating it, and then putting the effluent back into the receiving bodies.
Here in Greater Vancouver, we have Canada's best water. But did you know that it is also the softest? Because of our fresh, clean, mountain-fed reservoirs, our water doesn't carry much of the minerals like calcium and magnesium that other cities in Canada have. And that's a big advantage because it means we can use about half as much soap to get the same results. The directions on detergent packaging are written for water conditions across the entire country, for water that is, on average, much harder than ours. By using less detergent, not only are you saving money, but you're also being kind to our local waterways, because all those extra suds that don't clean your clothes end up in our rivers and oceans. So, the next time you're doing your laundry or washing the car, the dog, or your dishes, try the Use Less, Save More experiment and see how little soap you can use.
Welcome Welcome back to Iona Beach and the Sustainable Region. In open rural areas, rainwater soaks into the ground and then percolates through to natural streams. But things aren't so easy in urban areas. There, more often, rainwater collects on pavement and covered areas where it's directed into underground drains. And as you might have noticed, there's no lack of rainwater in Greater Vancouver. Coming up next, Suzanne Hepburn looks at an innovative solution to the problem of excess wastewater in combined sewers.
Hi, and welcome to Ask an Expert. Today I'm going to visit an innovative storm sewer project in New Westminster. But first, we need a basic lesson about combined sewers. Here we can see how they work. Combined sewers are pipes under our streets that collect wastewater from our homes, such as from sinks and toilets and washing machines. And when it rains, they also collect runoff from roof drain spouts and from street drains. This over here is a wastewater treatment facility. Most of the year, this combined wastewater flows into the facility where it is treated and then discharged into the Fraser River and Burrard Inlet. But during a storm, everything changes. The stormwater can fill up the pipes so much that the treatment facility can't handle it. It backs up through the pipes, needing somewhere to go. The only other outlets are these overflow pipes, which flow directly into open water. So, wastewater from your home and stormwater go there untreated, posing a risk to public health and aquatic life. Municipalities are replacing combined with separate sewer lines, but it is a costly and disruptive process. Let's take a look at an innovative way to deal with the problem. This big hole will make a difference to the quality of the water in the Fraser River. Here to tell us about it is Paul Wilting. Hi, Paul.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Not too bad.
So, can you tell us where we are and what this is?
We're at the foot of 3rd Street in New Westminster, right on the Fraser River. And behind me is a CSO storage tank.
What is a CSO storage tank?
It stores combined sewage. What happens during heavy rain is our pipes do not have enough capacity to convey all the flow to the treatment plant, and the treatment plant doesn't have enough capacity to treat all the water that comes towards it. So we generally spill into the Fraser River. This tank will store some of that flow until we have conveyance and treatment capacity, and then pump it into the treatment plant at a later time.
How much water does this tank hold?
This tank holds 20,000 cubic meters.
And how much is that in terms of daily rainfall?
On a heavy rain day in November, it'll be about 2 days worth of rain. So you can imagine with a facility like this that there would be some concern about odor. And what we've done is we've designed in this center flush column, and what it does is it actually sucks up some of the sewage on the inside of the column and holds it until the tank is empty. Now, after we've pumped out the tank, a lot of solids will settle on the bottom, and this vacuum column will hold the water and then flush it down to the sides to this large trench we have along the exterior. Then there's going to be a second flush column on the outside of the tank, which will flush it all towards the pump station.
What's the benefit of using that water?
We save a lot of water because we're using the sewage to flush all the material out.
How often do overflows occur?
Generally every time it rains heavy.
Okay, and if there was a long period of light rainfall, does an overflow occur then?
No. Generally we can handle that kind of flow.
Can you tell us what the cost of this project is?
This tank is roughly about $14 million, and it is funded by the GVRD, the City of New Westminster, the Province of BC, and the Government of Canada.
Is the municipality of New Westminster still going to have to replace combined sewers with separate sewer lines?
Yes, they will. That's the long-term strategy in the Lower Mainland. But that's a multi-year project or multi-decade project, and this is sort of a stopgap measure.
What is the cost of that endeavor?
Probably in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
So obviously, as it's under construction, the whole system is open. What will it look like once it's finished?
Well, we're in the process of putting on a lid on the tank, and once it's done, all that will be visible will be a small control building, and around that we're building a park.
If you've got a question you'd like us to find an expert to answer, give us a call at 604-436-6794 or email us at thesustainableregion@gvrd.bc.ca. I'm Suzanne Hepburn. I'll see you next time. The garburator is a classic example of how easy it is to think that there's an out there. We just dump the food waste in the sink, flick a switch, and it's gone, out there. But as we all know, there isn't really any such place as out there. It all ends up somewhere. In this case, food waste run through the garburator ends up at our local sewage treatment plant and eventually in our local ocean. This is not good. In fact, it's bad. It costs about twice as much to process food waste this way than if you just dumped it in the garbage. And once in the ocean, the oxygen required to digest the food waste is taken directly out of the gills of our fish friends. Composting is easy and good for your garden. If you live in an apartment building, there might be a community garden nearby that would be grateful for your contribution. So retire your garburator, because out there can actually end up pretty close to home.
Welcome back. You're watching The Sustainable Region. I'm walking along the outflow pipe from the Iona treatment plant. Treated water flows through this pipe and into the Georgia Strait. Coming up, we'll continue our tour of the Anasis Island wastewater treatment plant and see the last stages of the process.
So we finished the primary, or the sedimentation process, the physical part. Now what happens is the bacteria starts to work in. So what happens is the water flows into this channel, and this is a wet well area. These pumps here pump basically out of the wet well below us, down those pipes underground, and up into the tops of each of the 4 trickling filters. The water comes out of these very large arms, which are rotating. So what's happened now is all the sloughing that's gone on in our trickling filters has now ended up in these contact tanks. And as you can smell, it's kind of an earthy smell. It doesn't smell bad at all. And that tells us that the bacteria is actually doing its job. I have no septicity, I have no hydrogen sulfide, because the oxygen that's present is doing the job. Now you can see all the diffusion of the bubbles coming up. It's just a massive bubbling, boiling type of water. And all it's doing is keeping everything in suspension. Now what we do is we send all that suspended water to our clarifier. So we'll just walk over to clarifier 7 here and I'll show you what's going on. So what's happening now is it comes up through the center of the clarifier, and as it moves out from the center, you can see out beyond the green ring there how clear the water is. Then if you look at the weir there, the water is absolutely clear, because all that sludge that was made by the bacteria has now sloughed, and it's all settled to the bottom. And as you can see, this is turning. And on the bottom, there's another set of rakes on the very bottom of the clarifier, and they're moving the sludge that's settling in the bottom into a sump. The clear water now is decanted off the top, and that's why they call these clarifiers, clear water on top, and it flows into these, into that weir there. The weir comes back down, and there's another channel alongside the one we just walked on, and the water goes down to the very end. As you can see here, it looks pretty good. Nice and clean. All the solids are gone from it. We're below our parameter. But there's still pathogens in it. So what we need to do is chlorinate. So we have a chlorination system. Chlorine comes in to a header below, and then as the water passes by, it mixes with the chlorine, stays for a period down to the contact tanks at the very end of the plant, and then we use the sulfur dioxide to take the chlorine out. Everywhere that we walk, You can walk underground as well in the galleries, right below where we were walking. I just wanted to show you the size of what's under here. Like I said, we're 125 acres, so it's huge. So we're going to walk right down to the end of this gallery, and then we'll go back up to a Nutrifor garden. And right in this very spot is where Jennifer Lopez and I met. She doesn't remember me, but I remembered her. We now are in the bottom of the cogen basement. Basically, we have some very, very large 20-cylinder engines up above us running on methane gas that we made in the digesters. These are the heat recovery systems below each engine, because the engine heats about 150 degrees coming off there. We can use that hot water. So we have a heat exchanger system on the bottom of each engine, so that hot water is added into our hot water system. What you see here is the product of Nutrifor, or the sludge, the biosolids that we dewatered here. This is what you're seeing here, and what they did is we turned it into a park. So it indicates how completely we can take what society sends down and use most parts of it and dispose of it in a meaningful and an environmentally safe manner. So this basically completes the circuit that you saw the water travel. What do we end up here with is the water has been chlorinated. We've used the sulfur dioxide to remove any chlorine residual. Again, we want to send the water to the river with no toxins in it. Water goes underground here, underneath through to where you drove in, and there's another channel that's parallel with the one that came in, and it heads out to the Fraser River. And that is Annis's Island.
Well, that's it for this episode of The Sustainable Region. We would like to hear your comments. You can call us at 604-436-6794 or email us at sustainableregion@gvrd.bc.ca. I'm Kaljeet Kayla, and we'll see you next time.